that amount, where are we going to get it with the economic of Nigeria? You no get money now, you no get anything. Please,
If you don't get anything, please. If you don't get anything,
please
yeah,
try to come down with that amount, please. I
listen
beg.
to me.
Huh?
If you not listen to me very well, you don't hear
Okay,
me.
okay.
I not force you people make you go find money. No,
Ah,
I not force you make you go file for what you no get. I no fit. But if you no get, I get bullets where I use to shoot am.
why
That
now?
oga wey e dey for him body so
Ha,
that everything go settle.
please, I beg. What can we? How? What step can?
There's a saying that says that when you ride on the back of the tiger, there's only one place you end up, and which is apparently the belly of the tiger. For far too long, some elements in Yorubas feel that they can find solace, that they can find political fortress when they connive, when they go into unholy matrimony, or should I say, lie in the same bed with these people who are different from them. That video we just watched is a testament on how the Fulanis will do everything possible to ride you, to deny you, to rob you of your heritage. We can see there that person that was kidnapped is just not an ordinary citizen from the southwest. He is actually the president of the Yoruba youth movement in Nigeria. The Fulani man, as we've heard in that audio there, he is asking for 100 million naira ransom, and he told the person who called in, who might be the ransom payer, that if you cannot provide the 100 million, that, well, what you have to contend with is a lifeless body of that young man. At this stage, I think it is now apparent that the Igbos, that the Biafrans, the South Southerners, and then the North Centrals are not the enemy of the Yoruba people. This young man who goes by the name Ojajuni is a Yoruba man, I think from Ibadan State. I have been crying, I've been shouting, I've been saying that the Yoruba people must be very careful whom they put their trust in. But again, when we come out, when we try to say that the only affinity that I think the Yorubas have with this northern element is because we probably are diversified. There's this religious dichotomy in the Yoruba land today, which has to do with almost an equal population of Muslims as against the Christians. So you'll find out that most of the Muslims kind of gear towards the thinking, the mentalities of the Northerners, most especially the Fulani elements. This poses as a great threat to the heritage, to the, um, should I say, the power and the existence, okay, the prominence of the Yoruba race. Because if care is not taken, if we continue like this, if the Yoruba continue not to realize that these elements from the north are not nothing but their enemies, not brothers in Islam, then they shouldn't be surprised when they get consumed. In the past few years, we can see that across the whole region in the Nigeria, one region that has absorbed so many Fulanis, Northerners, these uneducated people, Almanjiris, has always been Ogun State, Oyo State, then Lagos State. I'll tell you that if you go to Ogun State, you'll find more Aboki there than Lagos State. There was a time in the early 90s, the Hausa people did everything as they wanted to claim a land in Shagamu. They stopped the Fulanis who were flocking in. They asked them where were they going. And you know what those guys did? They brought out their machete and then they started fighting and unaliving the indigenes of that land. I think this happened in the year, I think in the late 90s or early 2000, thereabout. That war, that riot was a serious one. But thankfully, the Akarigbo, the king of Shagam then, Akarigbo, of course, of Jebuland, had some elements who had firearms. They were able to repel those guys. And of course, the government of the day later intervened. In a nutshell, we have seen that the rate of conflict that the Yorubas have had with these northern people has been more than the number of conflicts they've had with the brothers in the southeast. I've always said it that the Igbos are never the Yoruba people's problem. I'm never saying that we and the Igbos do not have issues. Yes, we have some issues. Most times it has to do with maybe a situation whereby a land needs to be repatriated, a land that probably was rightfully bought from the Yoruba person, and in the future the children wants to reclaim that land because that Igbo man has bought the land, and then it leads to maybe infighting, and this rarely happens. Or in a situation whereby they are in business and then we start having business rivalries. These are the things that frequently happens between the Yorubas and then the Igbos. This is why you see that the Igbos will call the Yorubas non-competitive, because the Yorubas are territorial in nature, they are protective in nature, they are conservative in nature, while the Igbos are Republicans in nature, more liberal. They want to compete, they just want to see an opportunity and jump on it. But the Yorubas are not like that. But that is a manageable issue. That is manageable. But when you take a look at the other type of conflicts, most especially religious conflicts, which are usually very, very bloody, or when you look at political power tussles, then you will see that frequency of conflict between the Yorubas and the Fulanis has always been more in numbers. Let's go to the 1993 election. On my screen, you can see the result. In that result, today the man who denied a Yoruba person is that same fellow Northerner. You can and then some Yoruba elements that call themselves Yoruba Ronu gangs will come out and say that they would rather trust an Hausa, a Fulani man, before Igbo man. Is always something that so many times I've tried to decode, try and understand, but I don't always seem to fathom it. When they say that the Nigerian common man has an Igbo issue, maybe I do not belong into that bracket, okay? Because I always see everybody as equals, and I understand that everybody can be overreaching sometimes, but I do not like to be judgmental. So talking about that election that happened in 1993, the man who denied the Yorubas of recording, let me say, the first presidency aside Awolowo, would have been an Abiola whom everybody was so hopeful about, whom everybody saw as a technocrat, who everybody believed might have changed, the course of this country for better. But it was the same Fulanese, in fact, their leaders. Because if you look at the hierarchy of the Fulani leaders today, I think Ibrahim Babangida sits at top, and he was the one who annulled that election. They didn't just annul it. In fact, they jailed and ensured they poisoned Abiola until he lost his life. You can now see how so much the Fulanese will do everything to ensure that the Yoruba people are always in their trap. They will always forever and ever ensure that in every position, in every sector, is it in religion, is it in politics, that the Yorubas fall below them. Look at the issue of religion as well. We know how during that 1993 issue of electoral saga, we know what Abiola did. He ran to the Sultan of Sokoto then, who was like the President General of Islam. He went there. He said, you cannot at this moment, let me go and face my problems and challenges alone. Your brother, Babangida, why don't you talk to him? Abacha, who is the chief of defense, why don't you talk to them? Why don't you come out and speak on their behalf? But you know what? The Sultan replied him and said, well, even my own brother is not complaining. Why are you, just a bloody Southwesterner, complaining? This is a military regime, and their order is our command. I cannot question it. There's nothing I can do. Just live with it. And don't forget how Abiola did everything to please them. Prior to that election time, Abiola did a lot of things. There was a moment that people even felt Abiola was going to Sharianize Nigeria. It was during those early 90s that Abiola went into the Apapa ports and sang a container of the Gideon's Bible. Okay? Because he wanted the Northerners to see him as one of their own. He wanted the Northerners to see him as a follower of Islam. He wanted to present himself as a fanatic, as a Fulani in disguise. But you know what? When push comes to shove, they still threw him under the bus. These are who the elements called the Fulanis are. They will forever deny and disgrace you. Do we want to talk about what they did in PDP against the Igbos? You see, you can never put all your trust in these Fulani people. Yes, they have been teaching the Southerners collectively a lesson. They have been hitting us back to back. Putting it in our face that what can you people do? Nothing. You guys will always remain on top of you guys because we have perfected the Nigerian politics. Whenever the Igbos and the Yorubas want to get together for one moment, they bring up an issue, it sparks that conflict, then they divide. Then you see them machinating all manner of agenda. Then you see the Yoruba now siding with the Fulanis. You see the Igbos grieving, saying Nigeria does not like them. All manner of complaints, or tribulations. And before you know it, the Igbos will also want to still rally around these same Fulanis. As it were now, the Fulanis are more or less like the hen that lays the golden egg. Like they are the ones who are the kingmakers. This position that they have come to occupy is an illusion that we must come and see. Why is Babangida now apologizing? Apologizing for what? If Babangida wants to apologize, then he also needs to apologize not only to Abiola, he needs to apologize to all the families that lost their lives while he was in power. He needs to apologize for all the money that he looted, and then he needs to return those money back. There needs to be a repatriation of those funds that he looted. His apology for me is not a welcome idea at this moment. This is what they do. You will recall when Uthman Fodio defeated the Hausa land, which includes Kano, Katsina, Jigawa and Co. When he defeated them, when he conquered them, changed their traditional rulership and dynamisms, so many years later, we were apologizing to them. That was in the dark ages. We are sorry, we apologize. But they did not cede power back to the real owners of the land. They would not. The same thing they are doing in Ilorin, where after they killed Afonja, they speak Yoruba with those guys, but they do not trace their ancestry to Oyo Kingdom. They trace their ancestry to the Caliphates. Go and check who is the emir of Ilorin today. Check his ancestral lineage, the history, the family tree. You are not going to trace it back to the Oyo Kingdom. No. You will trace it to Sokoto Caliphates. So these are the issues. We must begin to open our eyes in the South that we are not supposed to be fighting ourselves. This expose, which is coming at the twilight of Babangida's life cycle, only shows one thing, that the Fulanis no matter how you think you want to satisfy them, you want to worship them. We know how the likes of Obi did. We know how Obi followed the PDP. We know how so much the Igbos invested in the PDP party. When it was 2023, you saw what they did. They betrayed them outrightly. Betrayed them. They took that presidential ticket. They gave it to their fellow Fulani brother, Atiku. That flared everybody up. You know, Weekend went mad. Obi was crazy about it. He had to leave. You know, we have served this party for over a period of nothing less than 20 years. Don't we deserve? This is who they are. They don't ever let go unless you take it by force. And most times it is usually by shedding blood. These are the people they are. They knew that Abiola needed to go. As at 1998, that Abacha died, you know, Abiola, who was incarcerated for over 3 years, I think Abiola died in 96 or so, if I'm not mistaken. As at 1998, when Abacha died, they knew if Abiola had not died, Abiola would have been made the president. They needed to take him away. The same IBB is coming out telling us all those things was done in the interest of the country. No, it was done in the interest of the Fulani sustaining their hegemony. Period. You left power for your brother Abacha. So what are you talking about? How is that for the interest of the country? The country wanted a man from the southwest, Abiola, but you guys felt, no, this cannot be the case. Somehow you used their brothers from the southeast to betray Abiola. Along the line, you as the Fulani man, you were playing the Maradona type of politics, deceiving everybody. And now the election. And when Abiola decided to protest, you jailed him, poisoned him. That poison was in him, killing him slowly until he finally gave up in 1996 or thereabout. But today, 30-something years later, you're apologizing. If anybody ever takes this for a serious note, that the Fulanis are to be trusted, then you must be a joker. Why? Because they are still perpetrating that expansionism agenda. They are not tired. They have not had enough. They still want to encroach your territory. This is what we must see, must understand. Let us listen to the analysis of Rufai Oseni of Arise News.
He accepted responsibility, but a lot of people are going to take that in different ways. So what will people like Ambassador Musbau, that always calls on my regular radio show, that lost his sight in June 12, say? What will people like Owela Kemfa, that was on television this morning, said over 100 people were killed alone in Lagos, that he knew that they were going to count the bodies? What will happen to those ones? Awonyenko. So even when we talk about the legacy of June 12, the lives that were lost, the crime that was committed, also there will be many questions that will linger. That why was it because Abiola won the election? If Tofa had won the election, would they have annulled that election? Because the fear then, and the zeitgeist then, was the fact that, oh, Abiola, very popular and everything, a lot of the military power check did fear that if he got in there, he knew them in and out. So they felt they were going to lose out. And Abiola had to constantly reiterate. So the annulment, was it an Abiola thing, or because they, what's it called, they just wanted to annul? But all of us now know it was an Abiola thing. Also, the brave move, if you read the book, of publishing the election results. Because they actually published the election result out there. And Professor Henry Woso had passed recently, and these were the conversations he had. Another part in this conversation is the part of how the annulment was announced. In the book, he says it was Abacha's forces. He didn't know anything about it, but he took responsibility because he was commander-in-chief. Yes. A lot of people will say the bulk stops with you. Absolutely. You take responsibility, yes, but what about other things that happened around that time? Because he well said it. He lost a lot of his friends. A lot of names were called. The Maradona name came from the fact that they had shifted the transition date many times forward and all of that. So there's been a lot of breakback. unlike former Vice President Oshibajo did say yesterday, his story also encapsulates the story of Nigeria. If you read the beginning, how did he even get into the army? A Yoruba man that dedicated his life to education, something, or something, I forget his name now, was the one that at a tender age went to the north, started teaching, got fascinated about how he can grow the north. One of his students was Yakubu Gowon. And it was Yakubu Gowon that he brought to Babangida School, Bida Provincial, on the day they had career day. And they saw this fine gentleman officer. And most of them said, we would like to join the military. Look at the commonality, a Yoruba man impacting education in the north. In fact, that man is said to have taught most of the creme de la creme. He was Yakubu Gowon's teacher, he was Babaginda's teacher, he was Abdul Salami's teacher. At least he taught nothing less than many presidents out of the north. So that's also Nigeria. And also, you know, the back and forth of him and Audu, like he likes to call him, Abdul Salami Abubakar, that I'm 6 months older than you. Abdul Salami has finally agreed that he's 6 months older than him. The nicknames, Kukule, you know, that they will call him and all of that, where he made, you know, his decision to get married after I saw Yakubu Gowon's TV. Again, another Yakubu Gowon getting married because he had just sustained some injury in the war, and guess who he had to get married to? You know, Maria. Yeah. And going forward, also other things he did. Also the twist that the tormentors are now seated together. Yeah. And that was Bola Tinubu. In fact, when President Bola Tinubu was giving his speech yesterday, he did say that he was one of the only people that did speak when Babangida was not ready to inaugurate the Senate. Yes. And he had very hard words for him. He thought he was going to jail, but Babangida shook hands with him. And we all know the story, how Bola Tinubu had to go on exile and all of that. It's easier said now, but I'm sure it wasn't easy for Bola Tinubu then, when he had to scamper and run for his life. Other things said about him, and this was where the business angle came, and you said it rightly, Professor Killer. He opened up the country for entrepreneurship. We will not be on air today if not for Babangida opening up the space in 1993, making it possible for electronic media to be able to gain licensing and all of that. Before then, it was mostly government-owned. The banking sector you have in today, all the great reforms, it will not have been possible without Babangida. Many reforms in many sectors will not have been possible. Like you say, the czar of free market enterprise. All of that is there. But the big cardinal question that will always haunt him will be June 12th. And let's not deceive ourselves. And you put it aptly, Professor Killer, when you said this was the time he won the lottery, but he had lost his ticket. Because if he had handled it better, but there he also said these things were not in his hands. This book will never rest the debate on June 12th. In fact, after this book, many other books will still be written to counter some of the things he said there and say their own part of the story. But the most important thing is that he has told his own part of the story. You might like it, you might not like it. He's told his own part of the story. And for those that are saying, no, he doesn't right to tell his own part of the story. No, he has a right to tell his own part of the story. And with due respect, I will now make a clarion call to the Jack himself, General Yakubu Gowon. Sir, you are 90 already. You owe us your own part of the story as regards the civil war and other things that happened under your reign. Because you see, our leaders must be able to tell their own side of the story so we can add it to historical discourse. It might not be palatable, it might not be good. We will still tell the truth, like we cannot account for people that died during that period and these needless deaths and how a man's money was taken away. But we need to hear these stories.
Absolutely. So yesterday, this book launch and fundraising for the IBB Library in